When authorities raided Rick Harrison's Las Vegas mansion, they anticipated seizing documents, assets, and valuables related to his legal troubles. What they didn't expect was the discovery of a secret room, hidden behind a false wall, expertly camouflaged to blend in with the surrounding decor. Investigators stumbled upon it while inspecting inconsistencies in the house's blueprint compared to the actual layout. A hollow-sounding wall near Rick's private office raised suspicions. After thorough inspection, they found a cleverly concealed latch hidden behind a bookshelf. Pulling it revealed a narrow hallway leading to a heavy steel door, locked electronically. Breaking through the door took hours, but what lay beyond horrified even the most seasoned investigators. Inside, the room was dimly lit, the air stale and suffocating. Stacks of old ledgers, VHS tapes, and hundreds of unregistered artifacts cluttered the space. But it wasn't the valuables that unsettled them. It was the disturbing personal memorabilia Rick had secretly hoarded for years. Among the relics were handwritten notes detailing shady transactions, photographs linked to black market deals, and unsettling keepsakes from deals that were never meant to see the light of day. The hidden room painted a dark portrait of a man who meticulously curated his own private underworld. What had once been seen as Rick's charming eccentricity was now exposed as something far more sinister, an obsession with power, secrecy, and control that had festered behind closed doors for decades. The room's discovery shattered any remaining illusions about who Rick Harrison really was. The mysterious artifacts, hidden from pawn stars. Viewers inside the hidden room, authorities found an astounding collection of artifacts that even Rick's longtime fans and business partners didn't know existed. Unlike the historical items showcased proudly on Pawn Stars, these pieces were different. Many were acquired through questionable, even illegal, means. Priceless paintings without authentication documents, ancient coins believed to be stolen from archaeological sites, and religious relics of uncertain origin were stacked chaotically in the hidden chamber. Each item seemed to tell a silent, haunting story of backdoor deals and betrayals. Even more disturbing was the realization that many of these artifacts were internationally protected. Owning them privately without proper paperwork constituted serious crimes under global heritage laws. Investigators began cross-referencing stolen art registries and quickly realized that several items matched open international theft cases. The irony was heavy. The man America trusted to appraise and value history had been secretly hoarding it for himself, denying the world access to pieces of cultural and historical significance. Experts speculated that Rick used his fame to mask illicit transactions, making it easier for questionable sellers to approach him without raising red flags. The discovery cast a dark cloud over Pawn Stars, forcing viewers to question how much of what they saw was real, and how much was carefully orchestrated smoke and mirrors hiding a much more troubling truth. This secret stash wasn't just a betrayal of public trust. It was a betrayal of history itself, a collection of humanity's treasures left to rot in the dark. The chilling ledgers that documented secret deals. Beyond the artifacts and relics, the most damning evidence found in Rick Harrison's hidden room were the dusty, handwritten ledgers stacked neatly along one side of the wall. These weren't simple accounting books for his business. They were detailed records of secret, off-the-books transactions spanning more than 2 decades. Each ledger meticulously cataloged deals involving rare artifacts, luxury goods, and under-the-table payments made to anonymous individuals. Many of the names listed were either coded or referred to by nicknames, but investigators recognized enough patterns to link certain entries to missing or stolen items reported by museums and private collectors. Even more chilling was the sheer boldness with which Rick described each transaction. Amounts were listed, descriptions of items were included, and sometimes even the method of smuggling was noted. Concealed shipments, cash drop-offs, false appraisals. In certain places, Rick even wrote about specific celebrities and politicians he allegedly interacted with, suggesting that the web of secrecy extended far beyond the walls of his pawn shop. Reading through the pages, it became clear that Rick didn't just stumble into shady dealings, he orchestrated them. The ledgers exposed a man who operated like a mob boss of rare treasures, blending charm and deceit into a business empire that looked clean on the surface, but was rotting underneath. Authorities knew these ledgers would be the cornerstone of any criminal case against him. They didn't just document illegal activity. They told the true story of a man whose hunger for power and wealth knew no limits. The secret vault. No one was ever meant to find. Hidden behind a false wall coated in aged wood panels, investigators discovered a heavily fortified steel vault. It wasn't visible to the naked eye. Authorities only found it after noticing a slight difference in sound when tapping the wall. The vault door was state-of-the-art. Biometric locks, manual code dials, and reinforced steel plating. Inside, they uncovered Rick Harrison's most tightly guarded secrets. This wasn't a simple safe for valuables. It was a treasure trove of concealed evidence. Stacks of unmarked cash, rare gemstones, and suspicious foreign bonds were piled chaotically. More unsettling were several locked boxes labeled with dates and cryptic initials, suggesting personal dealings far more illicit than anyone imagined. Authorities immediately sealed the vault's contents for forensic examination, knowing this hidden room could be the final nail in Rick's legal coffin. The sheer existence of such an advanced vault pointed to deliberate planning, implying Rick had prepared for years to hide, protect, and possibly leverage these dark secrets. It raised a chilling question. Just how deep did his network of crime run? And how many others were involved that Rick never intended the world to discover? The disturbing photos that raised serious questions. Among the piles of hidden documents, authorities stumbled upon a locked metal cabinet. Inside were dozens of photo albums, but these weren't family memories. The photos depicted secret meetings, handshake deals, and exchanges of cash or objects between Rick and shadowy figures whose identities remain blurred even today. Some photos even seem to involve celebrities, political figures, and underground dealers, all caught in candid moments of what appeared to be illicit transactions. Even more disturbing were photos of highly confidential artifacts, including items that had been reported missing by international museums years earlier. The dates stamped on the back of the photos suggested that Rick had been involved in these activities for decades, operating under the radar with meticulous precision. Investigators were left stunned by the clear visual evidence of a hidden world thriving just beneath Rick Harrison's polished television persona. These photos weren't just concerning because of their contents. They raised serious legal questions about blackmail, extortion, and even trafficking. The albums painted a chilling portrait. Rick wasn't just a businessman who crossed legal lines. He might have been orchestrating one of the largest underground trading rings in the country. Banned historical weapons. Hidden away from authorities. Tucked behind a hidden door within the secret room, investigators unearthed crates filled with banned historical weapons. These weren't typical pawn shop curiosities. They included fully operational World War II firearms, ancient swords believed to be stolen from archaeological sites, and military-grade explosives that were completely illegal for civilian possession. Some of the weapons still bore the insignias of defeated armies, while others were heavily modified to erase identifying markers. Authorities were horrified by the condition and variety of the arsenal. Worse yet, several weapons had traces of recent firing, suggesting they were not just for show. Among the items was a ledger, documenting when certain weapons were loaned out or sold, and some entries matched the dates of violent crimes still under investigation. Experts believed Rick wasn't just a collector. He may have been supplying weapons to criminal networks. The discovery of this chilling arsenal fundamentally changed the direction of the investigation, moving it from financial fraud into the realm of national security threats. The fact that Rick had hidden these weapons so carefully showed he fully understood their devastating potential, and still chose to keep them. Illicit documents linking Rick to underground dealers. In a dusty, locked cabinet next to the secret vault, investigators found stacks of paper contracts, forged certificates, and secret correspondence that exposed Rick's dealings with underground art and antiquities dealers. Some documents were coded, while others blatantly referenced illegal transactions. Handwritten notes showed how Rick used shell companies, fake appraisals, and offshore accounts to hide the movement of stolen or smuggled items. Particularly damning were signed contracts for rare items that had gone missing from museums across Europe and Asia. There were even documents implicating Rick in smuggling ancient relics across international borders without customs approval. It became clear that Rick wasn't just an unwitting participant. He was a skilled architect of an elaborate black market network. The sheer volume of paperwork indicated that these transactions were part of a long-standing, well-organized operation. Investigators realized they weren't simply dealing with a shady pawnbroker. Rick Harrison's hidden life involved global criminal enterprises, art theft, smuggling, and massive money laundering. A reality completely at odds with the smiling businessman America thought they knew. Strange ritual. Items and their dark implications buried among the other illicit treasures, investigators discovered several boxes filled with strange ritualistic artifacts. There were ancient occult books bound in deteriorating leather, handmade talismans, and ceremonial daggers caked with unknown substances. Some items appeared to originate from ancient pagan cultures, while others were linked to secret societies rumored to operate in modern times. Alarmingly, several of the objects seemed intentionally placed within protective circles drawn on the floor of the hidden room, as if Rick himself, or someone he trusted, had been actively using them. Investigators called in experts on religious artifacts and occult practices to examine the findings. The symbolism carved into the items suggested dark rituals tied to protection, wealth accumulation, and domination. Whether Rick was truly practicing occult rituals or simply collecting these artifacts for their black market value remained unclear. Regardless, the presence of these objects added another deeply unsettling layer to the investigation. It suggested that Rick Harrison's hidden room wasn't just about wealth. It was about power, secrecy, and possibly forces much darker than anyone had imagined. Mysterious jewelry linked to missing persons cases. In one of the more chilling discoveries, investigators opened a velvet-lined trunk filled with rare and expensive jewelry. But what truly horrified them was that many of the pieces matched items from open missing persons cases. Rings, necklaces, and brooches described in police reports as belonging to vanished individuals were unmistakably found among Rick's hidden stash. Some even had initials engraved, matching those of missing victims whose families had been searching for decades. Experts quickly cross-referenced the items with databases, confirming several matches. How Rick came into possession of these deeply personal treasures remains unclear, but the implications were devastating. It suggested either direct involvement with criminal activity surrounding these cases, or at the very least, handling stolen property tied to human disappearances. Families of missing persons demanded immediate answers, thrusting Rick even deeper into public condemnation. No longer was the investigation simply about financial wrongdoing. It touched on human lives, unspeakable loss, and possible complicity in horrific crimes. For many, it painted Rick not as a rogue businessman, but as someone potentially connected to tragedies far darker than anyone had ever suspected. This discovery turned public outrage into pure horror, leaving a deep scar on his already crumbling reputation. The hidden safe containing millions in undeclared cash. While sweeping the mansion, authorities uncovered yet another hidden compartment, this time behind a bookshelf disguised with antique bindings. Inside, they found a large industrial-grade safe. After hours of trying to break through its defenses, they finally opened it. And what they found stunned them. Millions of dollars in unmarked, undeclared cash. Bundles of crisp $100 bills were packed neatly, each wrapped in rubber bands, with no record of the source. Alongside the money were counterfeit foreign currency notes, suggesting Rick may have been involved in international money laundering schemes. Financial experts brought in to assess the discovery confirmed that the cash represented years' worth of undeclared income, meaning Rick had been siphoning off vast sums without attracting government attention. This wasn't a mere mistake in bookkeeping. It was deliberate, criminal concealment on a massive scale. The scale of the hidden fortune shocked even seasoned investigators. It proved that Rick's Pawn Stars fortune was likely only a fraction of his real earnings, most of which had been hidden away in this secret cache. Authorities immediately seized the money, preparing additional charges that would guarantee decades behind bars. Rick's double life was now undeniable. Cryptic letters, hinting at a vast criminal network. Tucked away in the folds of a worn leather journal, authorities found a collection of handwritten letters. At first glance, they appeared to be casual correspondences, but a deeper reading revealed they were coded communications. When experts cracked the cipher, a terrifying picture emerged. The letters discussed illicit shipments, bribes to officials, and secret meetups using language only insiders would understand. Even worse, the letters hinted at a vast criminal network stretching far beyond Rick Harrison alone. With links to other high-profile figures, international smugglers, and corrupt law enforcement officials. Names were partially blacked out or referred to by code names, making immediate identification difficult. But the very existence of such detailed communications suggested Rick wasn't a rogue operator. He was part of a much larger system of organized crime. The letters hinted that arrests of Rick's associates could cause a domino effect, toppling powerful individuals who had remained hidden for years. Investigators realized they were standing at the threshold of exposing an international scandal of epic proportions. The once beloved TV figure was no longer seen as an isolated criminal, but as a dangerous cog in a massive machine that threatened to shake foundations of trust across multiple industries. Evidence of secret offshore bank accounts. Forensic financial analysts combing through Rick Harrison's recovered documents and seized devices found a shocking trail of hidden assets. Secret offshore bank accounts. These weren't minor savings tucked away for a rainy day. They were massive, sprawling financial empires stretching across multiple tax haven nations like the Cayman Islands, Panama, and Switzerland. The accounts were linked through layers of shell corporations, dummy executives, and fraudulent businesses, making them almost impossible to trace without Rick's personal access codes, some of which investigators luckily found scribbled on hidden notepads. The total hidden wealth? Estimates placed it upwards of $300 million, a staggering figure far surpassing Rick's known assets. It was a devastating discovery. It confirmed Rick had spent years funneling illegally obtained profits out of the U.S., evading taxes, and laundering money on an international scale. The discovery of these offshore accounts shattered any remaining belief that Rick was simply a pawn shop owner who got in over his head. He had deliberately built a web of financial deception so intricate that it would take years for authorities to untangle completely. His fortune, his empire, his public image, all were now drenched in scandal and betrayal. The cryptic final note Rick left behind. Hidden inside a worn-out, hollowed book titled The Art of War, investigators found something chilling. A final handwritten note from Rick Harrison, seemingly intended for discovery if everything went wrong. The message was cryptic, but hauntingly emotional. Rick wrote about betrayal, fear, and how the people he once trusted had turned against him. He mentioned enemies closing in and truths too dangerous to speak, suggesting he knew exposure was inevitable. What made the letter even more disturbing were vague allusions to taking matters into my own hands and not letting them use me as a scapegoat. Some lines implied Rick had considered disappearing entirely. Or worse, experts speculated whether the letter hinted at plans to flee, fake his death, or orchestrate some final act of revenge. Although no direct threats were made, the tone was ominous and unstable. It was clear Rick felt trapped, paranoid, and consumed by the consequences of his secret life. The discovery of the letter added a tragic, almost Shakespearean layer to the entire saga. Rick Harrison wasn't just a criminal hiding behind fame. He had become a man completely undone by his own ambition, fear, and betrayal.